Hey everybody! The other day I wanted to make a larger version of this photograph. This picture I took many years ago in Union Station in Washington, D.C. This woman and man walking towards the Christmas tree in the distance. It's a photo I've always liked a lot, and I wanted to make a larger picture that I could mat and frame and put on my wall. And I needed to figure out the amount of time to expose the larger one. The small one took 45 seconds. That was the total exposure time to make this print. And you may think that's a long time because quite often people do prints in like 10 or 15 seconds. I have a smaller aperture set. I set it to f8, and I have a pretty weak light source. This is not a really strong enlarger, so that's why you end up with something like 45 seconds for a picture like this. Well, how do I get from 5x7 to 8x10? What do I need to do to the time that I'm exposing this? I want to keep everything else the same, so I'm going to use f8 on the lens, and I'm simply going to raise the enlarger head up high enough so that I get the 8x10 photo that I'm looking for on the base plate. One way to understand this is to take a look at how the light energy changes from a small image to a larger image. Look at the amount of energy that went into, for example, a square centimeter of the Christmas tree on the smaller image, and then when you see the Christmas tree is spread out over a larger area on the larger image, you realize that that light has been diluted, and so you're going to have a lower amount of light per square centimeter. So what we need to do is twiddle with the exposure time so that we make the average light that's striking that Christmas tree per square centimeter be the same. And that really amounts to finding the percent increase in size from the small photo to the large photo. We're looking at features, not at the size of the paper, because you can crop and change things. We have to look at how features grew, and that's going to give us a clue as to how the light energy was diluted, and so how much we need to add. So what I did was I took this photo and I measured the height of the woman, and it turns out that she is 3 1/8 inches from the tip of her shoe up to the top of her head, 3 1/8 inches. And then I took the enlarger and I set it up for the 8x10 print that I wanted to do, and got everything framed, everything set perfect. And so you notice right now I'm at 35 centimeters. I had been way down here somewhere, so it's pretty high up. Then I measured the height of the woman on the base plate with the same ruler, and she turned out to be 4 1/8 inches. So let's just be rough and ready and take 4 inches for the large print, this one, and 3 inches for the smaller print. So that's how much the woman in the center of the picture grew. That means the light expanded by a factor of 4/3. One thing we need to remember is that light is expanding this way and this way. It's going in two directions. It's a two-dimensional thing. Therefore, we have to consider that 4/3 factor in 2 dimensions. So we just square it. So that's going to be 16/9, I suspect. And just do it on your calculator and use that as the factor that you multiply the time by. So I took the 45 seconds for this photo and multiplied it by the factor that I came up with, and that gave me about 80 seconds. This technique is really effective because you spend a lot of time doing various test strips and things like that to get your exposure just right in something small like 5x7, and you've written everything down in your notebooks. Why not leverage that? Why would you want to have to go through all that trouble in order to get the 8x10 right? It's so easy just to take that 5x7 exposure time, find the right factor, multiply it, and then do a test print. And if you're like me, you might luck out and have it be the print. That's it. I did nothing else to this. I didn't have to do any test strips for it. There's no dodging, no burning. I'm happy with the way it turned out. People who do this for a living, people who are professionals working in a darkroom doing prints all day long, they don't need to do this kind of stuff. They already have an intuitive feel for how much to change the exposure when they're doing prints, regardless of how big they do it. And they're probably not going to waste any time trying to calculate anything. They're just going to make a rough guess, or maybe they have a little chart on the table taped down or something, and they're just going to grab another sheet of paper and do another print. Paper is cheap. They aren't going to try to cut corners this way and that. But for somebody like myself, an amateur, and most of the people doing this will be amateurs because it's kind of a dying art, it's not going to be something you do often enough to really have that intuitive feel. So it's nice to be able to just look and say, oh yeah, I need to just measure how much a feature in the photo changes and use that as a factor, square the factor, and use that to determine how many more seconds I need. And it's a pretty straightforward way to calculate the exposure change for making a larger print. I'm really happy with this. This is going on my wall. So that's all I got for you today. Thank you for watching. Now go out and shoot a roll.